Afternoon, I guess it is afternoon, everybody. My name's Mel Carroll. I'm one of the system administrators, and thank you for joining us for our quarterly webinar, the item life cycle in the MSC. If you attended MLA, this is the same presentation. We just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to see it as well as have it recorded for future reference because uh, it's it can be a little bit confusing, and there are a little bit of some new changes that we've did in the last year or so. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. Maybe. Okay. All right. So our agenda for today is I'm going to talk about the item life cycle. I'm really going to focus in on the circulation life cycle because that's really the main part of your item's life cycle and also where we start getting a lot of questions on our end. And then through that, we're going to talk about the automated loss process, as well as the manual processes that staff can perform or should perform, depending on the reason. And then we're going to go into the monthly cleanup processes that happen on the back end of the system. That's some of the new things that we've implemented in the last year. And then resources for you guys after today's webinar that you can refer to or refer your staff to or use to your heart's content. Okay. So the item life cycle, I have a pointer and I'm going to try and not go overboard with it because I am a hands person. So for the item life cycle, generally what happens is staff orders the item, then they go to catalog it, and then it gets ready for the patrons to either place holds, check out, or return the item. And it kind of follows this pattern, hopefully for a while. And then it comes down to this item becomes lost, damaged, or missing. And that's when the system performs some processes. That's when staff may need to perform some processes. And then depending on what the issue is, it may need to go to this next step where staff would evaluate it for reordering, which they would then do with the vendor, or they would discard it from the catalog. And then that cycle kind of continues. So I'm only going to briefly touch on cataloging because we have a lot of great resources out there and I really want to get into the circulation life cycle, but we can't talk about the item life cycle and not talk about the first step, which is adding something to the catalog. If you see this left-hand side here, this is a screenshot of the call number and item maintenance wizard. When staff first get the item in from the vendor, you're going to want to use this screen, or this wizard rather, to search by title, ISBN, maybe even author to find the right one. And then you would go ahead and add your item, add in all the applicable fields that you use in your drop down, and then get it ready for patrons to use. Now, if you can't find it in the call number and item maintenance wizard, that's when you're going to use this right-hand side, which is SmartPort, to bring the record in over from OCLC. And here you want to again do a title search, an author, an ISBN, find the right one that meets what you have that also aligns with the standard cataloging practices for the MSC. And then you're going to go ahead and bring that in and go into the call number and item maintenance wizard and fill out your fields and get it ready for the user. I'm not going to go so much into SmartPort. If you have questions about it, our last quarterly webinar was on SmartPort, so you can find that on the MSL Learn YouTube channel. And then if you need any resources on cataloging, Laura Treader has done some great work updating all of those in our knowledge base, and we'll point you to the knowledge base at the end of this, but we really recommend checking any of that out and then opening a ticket, and we'll answer any questions you may have. Okay, so that being said, let's get into the circulation life cycle. So this left-hand side of the screen is what I like to call the ideal, maybe fantasized version of what should happen in the system. The patron grabs the item from the shelf, staff check out the item, the patron returns it on or before the due date, and then staff reshelve it. And it just kind of follows that loop, or it should. But as we can see from the right-hand side, this is probably a little bit more closer to reality for the majority of patrons. They check it out, they don't return it by the due date, they're notified that it's overdue, and then the patron returns it, and then the cycle continues. Um, we all wish it was more closer to the left-hand side of the screen, but what can we do? So what happens to the items if it falls out of that ideal or close to reality flow chart that you just saw on that last slide? Well, a couple of things happen on the back end of the system. One is the system lets you know that the item's overdue. It follows the processes that I'm going to go through on the following slides. And then the system runs an assumed loss report, and then it runs a loss report. And that's kind of just the three little steps that go. So let's get into the more detailed explanation. So overdue. The system automatically sets the status when at midnight of the day the item is due. This is when your notices are going to be sent out in intervals of 7. So like 1 day overdue, 7 days overdue, 14 days overdue, depending on what you have set up on the back end. Also, the different types of notices are also per library setting. So we have our email notices, we have our print notices. You will see that SMS notices aren't listed here on this slide, and that's kind of for a reason. We, on our side, think of that more as a courtesy service, and that's mostly due to kind of the unreliability of cell phones for text messages to come through, and also because it's not, there's no customization in how SMS notices are sent, whereas the email and print notices, you get more customized options. For SMS, you only get, the patrons will only get one notification at 7 days overdue, and then they've received no more notices for that, whereas our email can occur on a more regular basis, and they can get multiple notifications of that. This is also where your patrons will get generated on your overdue lists or your overdue call lists. For a shameless Blue Cloud Analytics plug, because that's one of my favorite products that we have. If you don't have an overdue list or an overdue call list set up in Blue Cloud Analytics, open a ticket and we can get that set up for you. And then also, if your print notices are not in Blue Cloud Analytics yet, please let us know. We'd love to switch them over. It's just a better format, and it just works better than the workflows reports. For the overdue, this is also where your library, if you still charge fines, this is where fines will start to accrue on the patron's account. That'll happen until the item is returned or it moves through the next process. Before I move on, I just want to do a quick question check in chat, because we're going to get a little bit more involved on the next slide. Is there anything in chat? Okay. I'm going to move on then. Okay, this is where things start to get complicated. So your patron's item is overdue. When it hits either 30, 60, or 90 days overdue, the system on the back end is going to run the assumed loss report on Tuesdays. And that's what's going to change your item status to assumed lost. It's going to put a temporary bill on the user's account for the item, and also a processing fee if your library does that. It's going to mark the charge as inactive, but it's still checked out to patrons. And it may also change the status, the user status, either blocked or barred, and that's depending on an optional setting that your library may have turned on. I will say here, pay attention to or draw attention to the note right here. If it was changed to barred by the assumed loss report, your staff will need to do an extra step to unbar your patrons before they can check out items again. If you don't have that turned on, when we come to this next step where it's item returned, staff won't have to do anything manually. But I may have just gotten ahead of myself a little bit, so hopefully I don't confuse you guys. So just to recap, it goes, the item becomes overdue, either at 30, 60, or 90 days, the assumed loss report runs. It changes various things on the back end, and then it sits in assumed lost. Just to follow the flow chart, if the item's returned, checked in, the item status automatically turns to reshelving. The bills on the patient's account automatically come off. The charge comes off the patron's account, and then the user status goes from block to okay. And then all staff need to do is reshelve the item. Now, what happens if the item's not returned? Well, it moves on to the next step of the process, which is the lost report. You may have heard of us refer to this as a couple of different things over the years. We've recently rebranded it to just make it simple that it's the lost report. So the item at this point is still not returned. So 90 days, 120 days, or 180 days after the item's due date, this report will run on the 5th of the month, and it's going to break the connection between the item and the user. And it does that by removing the item information completely from the user's account. That's just a system setting. So when you go in to look at the user's account after it's moved through this report, you're going to see a permanent lost X bill, which replaces the lost bill, and a permanent process X fee if your library does a processing fee. All of that's going to be blank. The item, or the other thing it does to the user's account, it's going to add a lost item note into the notes field, and that's where you're going to get that item information. On the item side, what happens is the status changes to either lost, discard, or replace. And then it changes the circulation type to lost item. For simplicity, as I go through the rest of this chart, I'm going to use just our default location of lost, but I just pointed it out here to let you know that there are options for the home location in the item status. Just another note here, the lost item circulation type, that prevents future checkouts. So if it accidentally gets returned, or it misscans, or it's sitting on the shelf and a patron comes to try and check it out, it's not going to let you check it out to that new patron until you go in and edit the item record. So moving through the chart, let's go through what happens if the item is not returned at this point. So if the item's not returned and it's not paid for, the bill is going to stay on the patron's account, the note's going to stay on the patron's account, and the item is going to stay exactly as it is with the circulation type of lost item and a location of lost until staff manually edit the item. So either they move the item to discard or replace, and then they won't really need to do anything at that point until a user comes in and pays their bill or what have you, whatever your normal bill process is at that point. If the item goes through the loss process and it's not returned, but the user comes in and pays for it after that, like their account's blocked and they want to check out another item and they've really just lost it and what have you, then library staff will need to go into the user's account after they use the pay bill wizard and manually remove the lost item note. Then the system that night will change the item information automatically to lost item with a home location of lost paid. Then all library staff need to do is then decide whether you're going to replace it or discard it. So I kind of said this a little earlier. What happens if the item is returned after it moves through the report on the 5th? Well, staff need to do more work in that instance. They need to first determine if they're going to accept the return. If they don't accept the return, then you would just follow this chart down here. But if they do accept the return because you want the item back, they're going to have to do a couple of steps. The first is they're going to have to go in and waive that lost X bill. Then they're going to have to go into the user's account and remove that lost item note. And then you want to get the item back into circulation. So you're going to need to go into the call number and item maintenance wizard, and you're going to need to update the circulation type along with the home location and then reshelve the item. Are there any questions on any of that? That's kind of the overview of the entire automated process. I will say that if you were curious about what your settings are for either one of these reports, please just open a ticket and we have all that information. I'd love to let you know. Also, if there's something that doesn't work for you, let us know and we can look at what we can do to make it work for you.
You had good timing, so there's one question in the chat right as you asked. It says, should we manually change the home location to discard when we get the lost report? Or it's
Only,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, when you get the lost report, if you check BCA or Blue Cloud Analytics, or you have a reoccurring email subscription to that report set up, it's up to you. You could either see that it's lost and just move it to discard, or evaluate it for reordering.
And the question has a second part, or wait until the item shows up on the monthly discard list. And that would depend, right? If they have their particular settings set to move things right to discard, that will happen automatically. Otherwise, they need to do it manually.
Yes. Yeah. If you choose to, on the 5th of the month, have your item go to discard, you could either do nothing and then it'll just get purged out of the system on the 1st of the next month. Or if you want to have time for staff to evaluate it once it goes to discard, you can check the discard list in BCA anytime from the 5th to the 1st, or the 6th to the 1st, and find out what had moved through that you may need to reorder. So. Okay, I'm gonna move on because I don't think there's any more questions. Okay, so that was all the automated process. So now we're going to go into the manual process. And this is the flowchart that you would follow. Like if staff come, or not staff, excuse me, if a patron comes to you either before the due date of the item, or before it moves through that loss process and goes, hey, I lost this book. I want to either replace it, or I want to pay for it, or what have you. But like, I lost it, I can't find it. Staff can use this process to kind of bypass that automated process. And generally, you only want to do that when you know that the item's not coming back and can't be circulated. Or I guess you could also use it if you want to give patrons a chance to look for it at home and have it exist outside, but that's a little complicated. All right, so to follow the flowchart, patrons inform staff that they've lost the item. Staff then use the Mark Item Lost wizard. And then what that wizard does is very similar to the assumed lost process. It's going to change, except it's going to change the status to lost claim instead of assume lost. And then it's going to put that temporary bill on that patron's account. And then it's going to sit in lost claim. And it'll sit in lost claim until either the bill's paid and staff then process the item, or the bill's not paid and then it'll go through into the loss process. But they kind of like walk through. So the bill's paid, the system's going to change it to lost item and then lost paid that night. It's not an instantaneous change. And then staff's going to need to decide what to do with that item. The bill's paid. And as I said, it's going to stay checked out until the bill is paid, the item is returned, or it goes through the next process. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about damaged items? The system was not designed to handle damaged items with an automated or manual process. I'm not really sure why the vendor decided not to do that, but they didn't. So our recommendation is that if the item is damaged and cannot be circulated anymore, it's so badly water damaged or a dog ate part of it, then staff should follow the procedures for the manual loss process, where you're going to use that Mark Item Lost wizard, because that's how you're going to be able to track it to the patron. And then it'll also be able to exist inside of that lost process. So there's no changing the terminology, unfortunately. We can't change it to claim damage or anything just because of how it's hard coded into the system. But I like to think of it as it's it's basically like it's lost anyway because you can't circulate it. So it's kind of like wrap your head around the terminology, which can be a little tricky. Um, However, if the item is damaged and can still be circulated, then you should bill the user for the damage, annotate it however you do, whether it's inside the book or in the item record and workflows, and then you're just going to reshelve the item. So this is kind of the last manual process when the item is still checked out to the user. This is the claims returned process, and this is an optional process. You don't have to do this. We don't have any stipulations for you. Some libraries do. And basically, this is what happens when a patron comes back and they say, "Hey, I returned that item." Staff can mark the item using the claims return wizard, and that leaves the item checked out to the patron, but it doesn't send them notices. It doesn't accrue any fines at that point. It kind of removes it from this automated loss process and it hangs out there for a while. So in the meantime, like staff should be searching for the item, the patron should be searching for the item. And if it's returned or found, you just check it in and then reshelve it. And then depending, staff can also modify the claims return counter in the patron's account. Uh, the counter is something that would need to be manually manipulated because just checking it in won't adjust that. So you would need to go in to do that on the privileges tab in the modify user wizard. If the item's not returned or found, then after 180 days, it's going to move through that, well, its very own lost report, which will break the link between the patron and the item. It's going to change the status and location to claims returned, and then it's going to change the circ type to lost item. Um, if it's found after that point, then staff will need to update the circulation type and the home location and then adjust the claims return counter if you can. Um, but the patron's not going to be billed for it. There's not going to be a lost item note in the patron's account, so it does differ slightly from that other lost report. And it's kind of thought to be like a grace kind of overdue or lost item. I will say that you don't have to have it that way. If you do want to charge patrons for those items or have that note in the user record, then just open a ticket and let us know. By default, everyone is set to not bill. And then if the item's not returned, then staff is going to still have to process the item by either moving it to discard or replace. So before I move on to the other manual processes, I just want to check again to make sure that there's no questions because we're going to pivot to something else.
There was just one question that updating the claims return counter is optional also.
Yes, that is also optional.
And then there's a question that says, currently in training for collection management, is Blue Cloud Analytics the best system for generating reports? And how can I personally receive these data reports?
Yes, every library should have access to Blue Cloud Analytics. If you don't know your username or password or the URL, then just open a ticket and we can help you with that. That is our preferred means for reports that you would access for statistical purposes or for checkouts, overdues, that type of thing. So just open a ticket. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next part, which generally doesn't have anything to do with patron accounts. It still deals with patrons though. And we're gonna talk about missing items. So A staff can't locate an item on the shelf either because a patron physically comes up to you and says, "Hey, I can't find this item," or it's on your on-shelf hold wizard and you can't locate it. What staff should do is use the Mark Item Missing wizard. And that wizard is going to check that item out to the library's missing account, and it's going to change the item status to missing. Um, if the item's found after that, staff, all you need to do is check it in and reshelve the item. If the item's not found, we recommend looking for it at least 2 times. Staff will then need to move the item to replace or discard. Decide whether you want to reorder it or just get rid of it completely. Yeah. Okay. Now, what happens to items that are lost paid? After it moves through lost claim or lost or assumed lost, and it's in that lost paid status, the system's going to change it to the circulation type of lost item and the home location of lost paid. And then the item's just going to sit there until staff manually handle it, whether they decide to move it to replace or move it to discard. It's just going to sit there indefinitely. So we really recommend keeping an eye on that lost paid report in Blue Cloud Analytics to identify those items. Okay. Are there any questions with any of that? Okay, I'm going to continue. Now I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about some other things that deal with system users, but just kind of give you an overview. A system user is somebody or some account that you use to keep track of items that you need for internal purposes, whether you're doing a big relabeling project or you're checking something out to story time or to a tech services account like repair or cataloging or even missing is also considered a system user account. And those accounts don't accrue fines, they don't become overdue, they're not included in your circulation stats, and they exist outside of these automated processes that I went over. To identify whether you have a system user, if we set it up for you, it's going to be your library dash whatever the account is, like Missoula missing. It should also in user cat one field have system and then be marked in the group ID as library processed. If, as a side note, if you have users that you're using that we didn't set up that don't have this information filled out and you'd like them to not accrue fines or be included in your stats, open a ticket and we can change that for you. Okay, so what happens to these users? The items in need of repair, replacing, or recataloging, so staff check it out to that designated user. The system's going to temporarily change the status to repair, replace, or cataloging. When staff have finished, they'll go ahead and check it in, and then you'll just have to reshelve as normally. As I mentioned, they exist outside of the automated system processes. So if staff don't check it in, they'll stay checked out to these system users indefinitely. Okay, and that leads us in to the monthly cleanup reports. So last summer, we started implementing some automated reports on our end to help keep the system tidy and clean up and fix some of the strange errors that kept popping up when things are checked out to users for an extended period of time. So for the missing items checked out to your missing accounts, for items that are marked claims returned, items that are in a home location of lost or lost paid, after 3 years, the system will move that to discard, and then that next month we'll remove it from the system. This process is not to avoid staff managing the items or looking for them or handling things locally. It kind of just exists outside to keep the system tidy, just to kind of fix some errors that we were encountering, and to make things just easier all around. So I don't know if you've seen in our Gov Delivery, excuse me, we're not calling it Gov Delivery anymore, our MSC newsletter. We have a new process starting in a few weeks. And this is going to be system users that aren't missing everybody else. If the item's been checked out to that system user for 3 years, we're going to move the item to missing. And then it'll sit in missing for 3 years. And then we're going to move it to discard. And then we'll remove it from the system. This is just another way to just keep things running smoothly and efficiently. The system users are supposed to be temporary checkouts. They're not supposed to be for an extended period of time. If you do have items that you need checked out to a system user for an extended period of time, we recommend using a home location versus a system user, then because it just kind of lives there. So if this is concerning to you, just please open a ticket and we'll figure out the best way to handle those items that you need to keep separate from your patrons. Are there any questions about the monthly processes? Okay.
Yeah, Mel, actually,
Oh, yeah.
we do have a couple questions.
Okay.
One is, will the person still be tagged as delinquent or barred after the 3 years?
This is a separate process. So if your item is in lost and that patron never came in and paid the bill because the item moved through that final loss process, they'll still be billed for it. They'll still have a lost item note. They'll still be delinquent and barred. Your system users shouldn't be having that status. Your items in missing shouldn't be having that status. So they're kind of they're two separate things, if that makes sense.
And we had a question earlier that was in reference to the system user. Is ILL considered a system user?
ILL is its own animal, and I believe we were not considering those for this process, but I don't know if Amy has a different thought.
I was gonna say that exact same thing, Mal. I was like, ILL is not quite a patron and not quite a system user, and they vary per library. So if you have questions about your library's ILL setup, I would say open a ticket. ILL could almost be its whole own webinar
Yeah.
because they're separate. They're separate from all the rest just because of the way they behave.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question, though. I didn't think about ILLs when putting this together.
I think we're caught up on questions for now.
Okay. So just to close out the item life cycle, we have to talk about what happens to the items that don't move. They're not damaged, they're not lost, they're not missing, they're just on your shelf, and what do you do with them at that time? We don't have any guidelines or recommendations for weeding. There's tons of information out there on it, on best practices and the things you should think of. But we do have weeding reports available to you in Blue Cloud Analytics that you can use to isolate and identify those items. See up here when you log into BCA, if you click shared reports, we moved it up to the top level because it was buried before. You'll see just weeding reports, and you can come in here and kind of identify to whatever best practice or specifications that you want. When you go to weed, you can just move the home location to discard. And if you have questions on how to kind of do that more efficiently, we can definitely answer that if you open a ticket. Okay, so moving into the resources. Like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of BCA. I could talk about it all day, probably in a very extended webinar. Um, so I have to do a shameless plug for the reports your staff can use to clean up these items or identify these items, or in order to replace them or discard them. Like the weeding report, we moved out the cleanup reports that were kind of buried in another folder to that main top level. So as soon as you log into shared reports, you just click cleanup reports, and then the catalog cleanup reports is where you're going to find the claims return list, the discard, loss, loss paid, loss assumed, replace, missing. All of those exist inside the catalog cleanup reports. I will say for the automated processes, if you're a public library, you're already opted into having run them. So this last one I have here may not really apply to you, but if you're a school or a special or an academic, you guys kind of exist outside of the normal patron procedures. So if you're curious and you don't have those reports running, how long your patrons may have items checked out for. In the circulation cleanup reports folder, we have this items checked out over 1 year, and it's just a count report, and it'll let you know whether maybe you need to look at having an automated process or if you have some items that you may need to clean up in the system. Um, all that being said, if you are a school and you want to automate the process, please open a ticket. We would love to get you on board and get things a little bit more automated for you so you don't have to manually work through each patron's account separately, or student's account rather. Also, we have a link to our knowledge base. All of the flow charts that were a part of this presentation are now in updated knowledge base articles. We made a subcategory called missing and lost. I can't guarantee it'll stay called missing and lost. We're kind of still playing with the subcategory name, but we have all of these kind of step-by-step procedures broken out in bite-sized articles that kind of can give you the either quick answer or quick glance at what's happening to your items or your patrons right here. And then also a nifty little quick QR code that you can use to get to our knowledge base. Our knowledge base can be daunting, so we're hoping that these subcategories make it a little bit easier for you to find what you're looking for.